Welcome to the Acta Non Verba Podcast. I'm Minty, and here we'll talk about business, freelance, mindset, education, mental health, life, personal growth, and everything to help you overcome your fears, know yourself, and create the life and career of your dreams. Each episode aims to provide you with motivation, inspiration, and advice to take control, achieve your goals, and elevate your life so you can take action, because we believe in deed, not words. Episodes in English and Spanish every week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Acta Non Verba Podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Dayana Aleksandrova, also known as Coach T. Dayana is a certified mindset coach, mentor, and digital nomad who has achieved incredible success in her life. She has been featured as a TEDx speaker, Business Insider, Yahoo Finance, and Refinery 29. And her story of beating her odds is truly inspiring. Born in Bulgaria, Dayana has faced numerous challenges in her life, but she never let that hold her back. She went from humble beginnings, from making a few $1,000s a month to building a multi-six-figure coaching business. And now her mission is to help entrepreneurs embody true confidence, get visible, and land soulmate clients. Dayana is a networking expert and the founder of the Activated community, a community that empowers entrepreneurs to achieve their goals and build their businesses. We're thrilled today to have Dayana in our podcast today, and I have so many questions to ask you. And we want to hear all her insights and strategies for success. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know what to say. It's been a very long introduction, but apart from that small intro that I gave from you, because there's so much to tell, and we're gonna go into that. What can you tell the listeners about you, or maybe if you could tell us more about your background and how you got started as an entrepreneur, because I know your story because I've been stalking you for some time and I really find her story inspiring. That's why I wanted to have her here. So I know you're a kick-ass storyteller, so take it away.
Great. Mechi, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome and I appreciate your support, and I'm happy to share the story with anyone listening just so I can inspire you. So I was born in 92 in Bulgaria, which was the year after the Soviet Union fell. And my perspectives of what to do in life were not great, let's put it this way. My mom's biggest hope for me was to become a notary and work behind a desk because that was a safe, stable job. But I had other plans. So when I was little, I was obsessed with American culture because I was watching MTV. So I taught myself English by watching MTV for like 4 years or so. And when I was 7, my parents got me an English tutor who taught me for $2 per hour how to pronounce things in basic grammar. So long story short, when I was 15, I got my opportunity to leave Bulgaria. I won a scholarship to be an international student in the US, and I was placed in a small high school, and then I won another scholarship to study in university in the US. And that was kind of the first time that I really ventured out of home. And when I really traveled, and the first time I was on an airplane. Actually, the first time anyone from my whole family was on an airplane.
Wow.
So when I graduated in 2015, and for anybody wondering, I did not study writing, I did not study speaking, I studied political science and philosophy. So there's that. And it was pretty rough because at the time in the US, there was still the effects of the financial crisis. So me being an immigrant, I did not have the same opportunities that other, classmates of mine did. So the only work that I could get was pretty much jobs sort of paid under the table or hourly. So the first job that I had out of college was a door-to-door salesperson. So I would walk around Massachusetts, knock on doors, and try to sell internet.
I
So
can
that
see
was
how that builds you up in a way. Like everything connects and it makes sense.
Yes, yeah. So that was really how I had to get out of my comfort zone because growing up, I was heavily bullied and I wasn't comfortable speaking with strangers, but it was survival. So it was like either knock on the Jonas's door and try to sell them Verizon internet or not pay your rent and be homeless. So that was my first very glamorous quote unquote job out of college. And long story short, I did this for a while. And when my visa was up for the US, I decided, okay, there's no need to struggle to try to stay here. It was very expensive and very time consuming. So I decided to travel. Now, That was the time, 2015, 2016, when travel blogging was really popular. So I was on Instagram and I saw this girl and she said, "Oh, I moved to Thailand with like $200 in my bank account and I became a teacher and I've been living and traveling since." I was like, "Great, I can do that." So I bought a one-way ticket to Bali. I went to Bali and I was expecting to see the eat, pray, love, very chill, like
That
happy
vibe.
people everywhere. Exactly the vibe. But what happened is, if you guys have been to Bali, you would know how you get out of the airport lounge and it's just chaos. It's motorcycles everywhere. It's like noise and it's just so unfamiliar that I was like, okay, what do we do now? So after a couple of weeks of struggle, I ran very low on money. I think at the time I had about $2,000 in my bank account, which was the most I ever had saved. So I was like, oh no, I have to get back to Europe. So I went back to Barcelona, Spain, just because I always loved, the climate of Spain. It was cheaper to live and people were really friendly. So I did a series of office jobs. I did a series of odd jobs where I was selling juice at one point. I was selling clothes at one point. I was a party promoter, even though I don't even drink. And in 2017, I was working at a startup where on paper everything looked like it was going well. So I was at this tech startup, the heart of Barcelona, fancy office. They gave me a MacBook. I had a team, but I was just so miserable. And I was miserable up to the point where all I wanted to do was not be at work. So I would either sleep or I would go on the weekend and get really drunk. At this point, I was drinking.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I couldn't live that way. But here's the problem. I really wanted to travel. I was dying to travel. I didn't have any money. So I quit my job. And with the little savings that I had, and to speak numbers, I think I had about $1,900. See, told you I never had more than 2,000 in my account. I decided to find a cheap way to survive abroad. And so I found this website and a place in the Dominican Republic, a hotel, was looking for someone to volunteer doing social media for them and writing blogs. And I said, oh my God, pick me, I'll go. So I was able in about 10 days to rent the room that I was using in Barcelona and to move to the Dominican Republic. I lived in a tree house. I didn't have
Wow.
walls. Yeah, but I had
Okay.
internet. And so I decided, okay, I've literally taken this massive risk. I don't really have money to go back to Spain. I'm going to have to find a job and it's going to have to be online because I guarantee you nobody's going to hire me to bartend in the Dominican Republic. So it took me 21 days, but I landed my first client, and it was a human resources company out of Los Angeles. And they paid me my first retainer, and I was able to go back to Spain. And this was the official foundation of my online business. And then, as Meji said earlier, when the pandemic hit, I became a full-time copywriter. And in about 13 months, I was able to scale my business to six figures. So it was some $120,000 per year I made in 13 months. Happened again the next year. And last year, I decided, okay, there are a lot of people asking for advice, mentorship, coaching, how I did it. So I decided to go to school again. I got certified as a marketing and mindset mentor. And that's what I do now full time.
Long story short, that was amazing. I mean, for everyone listening, you guys, like sometimes I have people that come at me and maybe they don't believe that they can make all of this money on the internet. And one of the reasons I also wanted to have Dayana here is because it starts here. It's the mindset. That is the first step. The first no that you get is your mindset. I loved your TED talk. I totally binged on it, and when I stumbled upon your TikTok, I remember the first time that I watched it, I was like, oh gosh, I can't listen to it because it's in Bulgarian. I really want to listen to it. And so then I found your translation. And so I wrote down a few questions that I want to go deep into that because I think that they are pretty much maybe one of the things that shaped you. And I think that, I don't know, for example, you said that one of your favorite authors is Seneca. And I consider myself a big story philosophy reader because I really enjoy it. And it kind of, in a way, it kind of really changed my life, the way that you see the world through a stoic lens, let's say. But, I'm pretty much obsessed with the world of, personal development and all of that, because I do believe that mindset is everything when it comes to business, when it comes to relationships, basically everything in your life. Like everything starts here. But something that I see in common is that many people who become successful, they come from nothing, many of them. And many of them have a very stoic mindset. So I guess what I want to ask you here is, you studied philosophy, right? So how do you think this shaped your reality?
That's such a great question. So, the reason why I actually got a degree in philosophy is because I was taking a lot of random classes that I enjoyed. And then when I was about to graduate, it turned out that I had completed a minor and I didn't know it. So, it goes to show that I've always been into that. But philosophy, it just teaches us a very fundamental skill that we take for granted, and that is thinking. So thank you, Mechi, for saying that mindset is at the bottom of everything, because it's true. And in my line of work, I teach marketing, but also in order for me to teach you how to be visible, how to pitch clients, how to get work, you have to believe that it's possible for you. Because if you don't, then you're going to sabotage yourself and you're not going to achieve what you're after. So philosophy for me is just a way to understand how to think freely for yourself. And unfortunately, it's a skill that I feel like we've kind of put to the wayside, but it's the same as knowing how to count, knowing how to swim. I think that it's fundamental for everyone to be able to think for themselves.
Yeah. For me, I think that I would say in my own journey, the first thing that literally changed in my life was me starting reading more philosophy and also psychology, which again, then of course, it ended up in me becoming a copywriter. Like it would make sense, right? But it is crazy how, yeah, schools basically, I think around the world, it's not just here in Argentina, there in Bulgaria, or I even think maybe in the US too. They don't teach you how to think. They train you to become an employee. This is where I think the internet comes to shift, the idea that we have about education or businesses. I mean, how many people do still believe at this point that you need a career to build a six-figure business, or just to have a successful business? We're not going to go into like numbers, but at least to make a couple $1,000s a month. Take me, for example. I studied to become a translator. Am I a translator now? Not at all. And I'm making much more money than people who study with me. So that goes to show that, yeah, of course, studying helped me because I studied English, but did it help me become a copywriter? Maybe. I mean, a better English copywriter, but it didn't teach me anything about becoming a copywriter. So that's interesting. But talking about philosophy and things that, shape your life, I mean, I find your story so amazing in a way because I can relate to many of your hardships too. And because I'm also a sucker for the underdog story. But I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, but you mentioned it in your TED talk. You talked about your relationship with death and the passing of your dad. And in this sense, I really can relate because, like, for example, when I was 7, I lost all of my grandparents, all of them. Then I also lost my dad. Death is hard, but I also feel there is no greater lesson in life than death. So I want to ask you, because this is a concept that I see also in many people who have a successful business or a mindset that allows them to be successful. Because I'm talking with you and you're a mindset coach, not just a copywriter, someone who travels the world, but I want to go deep into that too. How do you think that maybe impacted your life, that concept, that notion?
Yeah, that showed me that really there isn't as much time as I think that there is. And I can't say that I have been a procrastinator. I grew up with a very strict mom, so I never had the luxury to procrastinate because she was on me about everything. But losing my dad, at a young age was like, oh, actually, if I don't start taking steps towards what I want now, it's not going to happen. And when he passed, he was about 35 years old. I'm 31 this year. So you can imagine that when you're at that age, you're thinking, oh, wow, like this could be it. So the big lesson I learned is to really go for what I want, because ultimately, and it comes down to this, we have one life that we can consciously remember. And this is it. Okay. So if we don't take control, if we don't design the life of freedom that we want, then it's not going to happen.
No, and someone else will if you allow it. It is very moving, and it's also very sad because I mean, how many people are living miserable lives? And this is also why I want to create this content, because I want them to get out of the rat race, they and realize that there is another way, because there actually is. And for some of us who actually got out of the rat race, but maybe we want more, what advice do you have for us?
Yeah, so it all starts with how you think. So we talked about mindset already, but a lot of people say something like, I want to make six figures, or I want to be seen on a big stage. Okay, but are you actually ready for that? Do you actually embody that? So when it comes to, creating success in your life, it comes down to two things. One of them is what you are mentally prepared for. So this is how much you can embody, because if someone, let's say, came today and just dropped a six-figure business on your lap and said, okay, you run it now, it's yours. Now, would you be like, oh, this is amazing, perfect, I'm so ready, I was made for this? Or would you be like, wait, you're telling me I have to serve how many clients and manage how many people? So you have to prepare for what it is that you want. And secondly, it's very important to have a skill that you can monetize. So, for example, I did not study writing. I took a copywriting course, but I had always loved writing and I had loved speaking. So, when you look at my career now, coaching is all about speaking and psychology. And then when I do marketing consulting, or when I am mentoring copywriters specifically, I have the skill set to go into their copy and tell them, okay, this could be better. This should be like that. Talk like this to your client. This is how much this should cost. So it really comes down to these two things: being in the right mindset and having this one or two profitable skills that you can start using and develop further until you perfect, as close to perfection as we could get, because we also don't want to get into the mindset of a perfectionist. Just be at a level that is good enough.
You're absolutely right about that. And yeah, it all goes to show that it starts in your mind. And like you're saying, it's true. I mean, what if someday, I mean, you make a lot of money, but it comes with so many responsibilities. I remember for me, I took the different route from, because for people listening, I met Dayana through Alex Catoni's course, and like it really changed my life when I took that course. And I think that it did for many people that I know that took the course, but I took a completely different route. I went on the Fiverr rabbit hole, and believe it or not, people say like, no, you cannot make a lot of money on Fiverr. Yeah, try Fiverr Pro, you can. But it is overwhelming. So as a coach, what would you say is the biggest thing that is stopping people from finding their ideal client? Because yeah, I can land a client that pays me a lot of money, but is that my soulmate client, like you say? In the end, I mean, you're doing this because you want to be free and you want to be happy and you want to do something that you love. What do you think is stopping them from actually achieving that?
Yeah, so it's a number of things. First of all, people struggle with clarity big time. So, one of the things that I help everyone whom I mentor and coach privately is clarity, because people come to me and they're like, Dee, I've got 5 different ideas. I can't find my niche. I'm interested in all the things. And I specifically work with a couple of clients of mine who have ADHD, which makes it a lot more difficult, because exactly, you don't know what to do next. Then you open one tab and then you're in another tab and then you're in 10 different tabs, right? I have a low grade version of that myself. So clarity is the first thing. Now, I will offer this. I have never had a niche. I do not plan on having a niche. Here's how I choose my clients. I choose my clients based on two things: personality and structure. So personality, I am here to work. Now, as a copywriter, this was different. I'll tell you, as a coach. As a coach, I work with people who are driven, ambitious, usually a type A personality, very talented person, okay with visibility, but not very comfortable, maybe has some history with being shy, introverted, or even bullied, someone who doesn't know how to channel their genius. I am here for that person. Also, the person who needs more confidence, because when you're looking to get a soulmate client, you need to know that you are worthy of working with them. So if you show up to a discovery call and there's your soulmate client, but you're just so uncomfortable speaking about yourself and your achievements, you're not going to land the gig, because you have to have that level of confidence. Another thing that I see a lot of freelancers and online entrepreneurs struggle with is outreach and networking. So I am so obsessed with networking that I even created a networking workshop that is on my website for anyone, anytime, anywhere, because like you said, Mechi, you've been on Fiverr. Great. I built my business 90% based on referrals. And for referrals, you have to have an activated network all the time. Because when you get referrals from people, they already are expecting that you're an expert, you're a pro at this, and you're halfway in the door because someone that they like, know, and trust has recommended you. So while you can get that connection, you have to be able to represent yourself the right way. So with that networking aspect comes the pitching. How do you pitch yourself? Right? I have a program called Online Entrepreneur Accelerator that is about to start for a new live season in April. And the last season that I taught together with my partner Jay was full of advice on how to pitch yourself correctly. And what we saw in most of the cases was that one, people were too shy. So their pitch was falling flat because they were embarrassed to really share their expertise. Like one of the people who I mentor, she used to say, "Oh, I am a former school teacher and now I am a marketing professional." When in reality, she was a global digital nomad and is currently serving as a marketing specialist for a multi-million-dollar startup. So this is the same person.
People need to fill the gap from where they were before and where they are now. So they say, "I was doing this," when instead they maybe shouldn't even say that unless it makes sense with what they're doing right now. But I feel that it's that insecurity of people like, okay, I've been working in marketing for the past 5 years, and maybe you're 30. Okay, so what about the other 5 years in your career or the other 10 in your career? So that is something that I also see across the board that people do.
People do themselves this service big time because they actually don't mention all of the accolades that they've earned because they're too shy for that. And then the next step of the puzzle, so you've got your clarity, you know who you're going after, you've got your network, so you're talking to people about opportunities, you've got your pitch, and then the final piece that is missing is the sale. So how are you going to get that sale? This is something that I harp on all the time. One, because I love sales. Two, because I think sales are fun. Three, because it is needed. So when you get on that discovery call, the point is for you to get them to say yes if they're the right person. If they're not the right client for you, obviously you're going to want them to say no, you'll politely decline. But what happens is that people don't actually know how to lead that sales conversation. I teach 8 steps because it's very specific and structured. And step number 1 is to actually take control of the sales conversation. So when you're looking to work with dream clients, you have to have all these pieces in place: your clarity, your network, your pitch, and your sales conversation nailed. And this is how you end up with the right clients for yourself.
And it's basically one of the reasons that I also want to talk to you, because I am not the only person struggling with this. I know other people who are also making a lot of money on Fiverr that they want to go off the platform. So how do you think is the best way to approach your dream client? Because I think that, it would depend. I mean, let's say if you want to work with coaches, you're not going to find them probably on LinkedIn. So how do you go about pitching yourself? Because the first part, like you say, is knowing yourself. And there's no one who can do it for you. You can take a course, you can work with a mentor like Dayana, but other than that, it comes down to getting to know yourself and to choose a niche. It is so interesting how you talked about this yesterday too. Like when you're multi-passionate, you know what you want. Because I'm going to give you an example. I love working in the fitness space, but also in the personal development space. So it's like, it's hard to choose. But I think it is important to know, because then where do you go and find these people?
Well, here's the thing. You said you're interested in personal development and fitness. So what do they have in common? They help people's lives get better. So what kind of business are you looking to write for? You're looking for a business that is making direct impact on people for the better, that is oriented in how to become a better human and live a wholesome life, right? Mm-hmm. So that way you could write for anyone who's a fitness coach, who is a personal development coach, maybe even relationship coaches, because that's the emotion, that's the energy behind what you're looking to do. So this is why I find the niche to be something that people are so freaked out by, when the niche is actually not so relevant. What you need to look for is what kind of impact the person is making. And then I spoke about structure earlier. So when I say niche down based on structure, that means, would you like to write for let's say one solopreneur. Let's say I had a client back in the day who was a French language coach. So do I enjoy working with her one-to-one, where I get to do a lot of the work and responsibility? Or do I prefer to work for a company? So I've written for AdWorld. If you guys have seen the conference, they have a team of 60 plus people. So what do I prefer? Do I prefer to be right there with the owner, or do I prefer to have a role within a big team where I just write my copy and I send it off to the project manager and they send it off to where it needs to go? So you have to know what kind of structure works better for you. For me personally, I do like to work in teams. I do like to have groups of people around me. If I had to work one-to-one, I only do that with coaching. For copywriting, like, you just have to pay me a lot of money to do that one-to-one, because when you end up working with a solopreneur as a copywriter, chances are that they'll ask you, oh, can you also put that in WordPress? Can you also put that in my email marketing system? Can you also track analytics? And then you're going to say, I could, but then I am your strategist and copywriter, and that is not a copywriter salary. That is actually a bigger thing. So like you said, where you need to go look for clients is where your client lives. So for example, if you're looking to work with coaches and solopreneurs, chances are that they will be on Instagram and TikTok. If you're looking to work with mid to large businesses, they're going to be on LinkedIn. But in any case, you have to have a personal brand, because that's what's really going to separate you from the competition.
That is completely true. And now this is something that also, because many people with ADHD, and I want to go back to this too, because most of the listeners that are listening to this podcast from the US or Britain or English speaking countries, they have ADHD. Something that happens to all of us with ADHD is that problem with finding the clarity, right? So it's hard to find, you know, what the right client for you is and where to find it and how to pitch it, and finding that right, you know, that sweet spot, let's say, that allows you to reach out to them. So I think that this is very interesting what you're saying, because how do you give advice to people with this problem? Because I see it across the board with people with ADHD. We make content on basically anything. It's so hard to stay on a single topic.
I get that. I get that. And what really helps is two things for me personally. So I have a content bank. So creating a content bank is really easy. When you are going for a walk or you're doing something, you have your phone on you. When a new idea comes through your mind, you write it in the notes of your phone. And then you go online. I use a platform called Airtable, but you can also use Google Sheets, and you create 5 different pillars, right? 5 different topics of content you're going to post. So that way you can have, let's say, a category called marketing, a category called branding, a category called sales, client wins, and then you can have lifestyle. So under lifestyle would go, you know, the pictures of your cat, you skateboarding, you eating pizza. This is your lifestyle. So while it's okay to have random content on what you do as a person, because we know that behind every business, there's a human.
Yeah.
Now, the question here is that you don't, if you're using your platform to get clients, you don't put this content in an overwhelming way. So let's say that you have 30% of your content be lifestyle. That's great, as long as 70% of your content is related to what you are offering. So for example, on Instagram, I talk a lot about, you know, my travels, when my boyfriend and I go to different islands and we get brunch and we're driving around in the car, like that's all good, okay? But 70% of my content is educational, where I teach people how to market themselves, how to get sales, how to clarify their vision. So I think that there is definitely an outlet for you to be able to share that lifestyle content, even if it's random, as long as you pair that up with content that is related to your offer. And then another strategy to offer here is to use storytelling. So if you want to talk about you as a copywriter, for example, let's say you're putting together a carousel for Instagram, you can begin your carousel with, I don't eat donuts, but when I saw this sign, I couldn't ignore it. So I walked out of the shop with a dozen. And then you go into it and you say, hey, I'm Mechi. I usually try to, be a good girl and not eat too much sugar. But when I saw this neon green sign while I was walking down the street, I just couldn't resist it. It almost hit me like a truck. And then you use those slides to explain what happened. So that way you could channel your creativity. You could weave in your other interests. Let's say you're a foodie. Let's say you like plants, whatever. And then by the time you're done with the carousel, you have told a story that takes your random interest and you're finishing with, hey, it's Mechi here, your copywriter and strategist. If you're looking for a juicy sales page ready to order, DM me the word sales, for example.
Yeah, I love it. I really, really love it. I'm actually going to start doing it more because my content is really all over the place. Like I should be working with someone like you, to be honest, who can give me some guidance. But now coming back to something that I was thinking, and this is me, my brain going everywhere, but I really don't want to miss out on this topic. When you took the course, when you had a scholarship in the US and you were living there, in your TED Talk, you talked about failing at a few topics. Maybe they were subjects or things like that. But I want to talk about the concept of failure because I think that is a big thing in entrepreneurship. And I think that the more you fail, the more you grow. But people are too scared of failing. So I want to know your story about failure and how maybe it helped just for your business. Coming from a mother who was very on you, how did you manage that? Becoming your own boss or having your own company is taking risks, and they're not always going to be right. Not everything's going to go your way. So how do you handle failure, and how did that help you?
Yeah, so what I do, which I don't know if many people do this, but this is how I do it. And I approach my business from the perspective of play. So if I am playing here, not that I'm not taking it seriously because I'm dead serious, but I'm also playful. I have the mindset of experimenter. So I failed multiple times in my life. For example, I have been fired, I want to say 3 times now. And I was fired because I was a really bad office employee. I have never been fired from an online job, but I have been fired from offices. I have also been scammed because back in the day, I used to be a lot more naive. So when I was living in Barcelona, I gave my last 300 euros to this woman who pretended she was going to rent me a room and didn't, right? So I have failed multiple times. I have, and that's the thing, like, you face rejection on the daily. So, for example, I do a lot of interviews on podcasts per se, and I talk to a lot of hosts as well. So, I don't always get the yes, but when I get a no, I don't cry over it. I'm like, okay, what can we learn from this? So, here's when the playful perspective comes in. Let's say that I have an offer. I'm looking for a client and I'm looking to sell a coaching spot on Instagram. And let's say that I post a carousel and I'm talking about my offer and I say I've got one more spot open. And let's say that nobody is interested, like not a soul is interested. Let's say that's the case. Well, what am I going to do in that case? I have to trust that it's going to work out because did I do the best job that I could? Yes, I did. Okay. If I said to myself, oh, I really did a bad job, I could have done it so much better, but I was lazy about it, I didn't really care about it, and now the result is that I failed, that's on me. But if I did really good job and I'm like, okay, you did your best, so whatever happens, you just have to trust that it's going to work out. And then the other thing here is, what can I learn from this? Maybe I need to create a different type of content, or maybe I need to break down one 10-slide carousel into 3 different ones. So there's always room to learn, and there is always room for you to be the examiner. So be that examiner, do not be the perfect student.
Yeah, I love it. And I think this goes very hand in hand with one of the topics, and I took down so many notes from the TED Talk, but I found it really interesting. The notion of calculated risk that you talked about. Sometimes it's also taking some risks, and you might fail, but in the end, if you don't try it, then it's not going to happen. Like, you can pitch a client, but if you're, I mean, in Argentina, we have a saying that you already have a no. Like, you're already not working with a client. So what do you have to lose? Like, just reach out to them. Like, for example, me, when I reach out to you, it was like, I wanted to reach out to you for so long. And I was like, no, she's not going to want to be on my podcast. And I was like, what the hell? I'm just going to send her a message. Why not? I mean, in the worst case scenario, she says no. But you said yes, and you're here. So that goes to show that you have to go and, take that chance when you have it and see what happens. But in that sense, can you maybe explain the topic of calculated risk and how you use it for your own business?
I love that. So the calculated risk from my TED Talk refers to when I moved to a treehouse. The way that I set it up then was I need to make sure that I have enough money to survive without going homeless and quitting my job. So the calculated risk is making sure that your baseline is okay. So we're talking about not going into extreme danger being I have nowhere to sleep and I have nothing to eat and I'm somewhere dangerous. Now, if you have that secured, so let's say that you have some savings, let's say that you have some consistent income coming in, the rest of what you have, your time, your money, your energy, should really be spent on you moving forward. So, for example, when I was finally ready to hire a mentor for myself a couple of years ago, I thought, oh, at the time, my first investment was $6,000, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is actually so much money, right?" Because I was just in the building stages of the copywriting business. But then I thought to myself, realistically, if anything was to go wrong, I have a place to live, so I could always go to the apartment that my family has in Bulgaria. I could always feed myself, and I have enough savings that, with whatever this mentor teaches me, I could take further and actually double my money. So not only did I double it, I think I made like 100, not 100 times, maybe like 20 times on my investment, if I'm being factual. But the point is, make sure that your baseline is secure. You hear me say this a billion times. I say it to everyone that I mentor, secure the baseline, secure the baseline. So as long as you have somewhere to sleep, something to eat, and you're able to have, daily freedom of, oh, I can go to the movies with my friends, I can go get dinner with my friends, then the rest of your time, energy, and money should be spent in investing in yourself further. So whether investing in yourself further is taking a course you wanted to do, or moving somewhere different, or hiring a mentor, or I don't know, buying a business and developing it further, or hiring people to work for you, that will look different for each person. But do not be the person who's holding on to what they have, being like, I will never have this much again, because this is hidden scarcity mindset.
Oh my God, yes. And we're going to touch on that because I think that we both have a lot there. I mean, me growing up in Argentina, it's hard because, Argentina has had economic crisis after another. Like it never stops. Right now, I think we have one of the largest inflation rates in the world. So it's crazy working with that scarcity mentality when you grow up. I'm not going to say I grew up not having anything because I did, but like, yeah, for example, I wanted to study English, right? But my parents couldn't afford it. So like you, I studied on my own. I also studied with I actually started with MTV2, translating songs that I liked and things like that. So that goes to show you can do it. But taking that risk, like you say, it takes guts. Let's say it. Even though you have a secure baseline, taking the leap sometimes it's not easy. So what advice would you give to people who maybe feel like they are ready to take the leap, but they're not just there yet?
I feel like if that's the case and you're ready, it's almost like, think about it visually. So let's say that you live in a city, you're standing on the roof of a building and you're looking at another roof of a smaller building, and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna jump. I can totally make it. I know that I can make it. I have seen other people do it. I know that I'm in good shape. And yet you're like, no, there's danger. I'm jumping off a freaking building. So this is the exact feeling that we experience internally. So what needs to happen then is you need to separate that fear from the reality. So think about this. I always talk about how important it is to have expanders. Expanders are people who have done what you want to do, who you can relate to. So for example, for me, an expander would be a woman who grew up with close to nothing, very humble beginnings, who is now a millionaire, who travels the world, right? So this would be an expander. You have to find someone like that who can show you that this is possible for somebody like yourself. And then secondly, you need to think about all of the reasons why it would work out. So when I was manifesting my soulmate, so my boyfriend, which is very similar to manifesting a soulmate client, I made a list. I want this in them, but also this is what I bring to the table. Because if you focus too much on the other person, the other thing, the potential failure, the potential win, then you're not really seeing what you have to bring to the table. Why are you worth it? Why should someone hire you? Is it because you're kind, good communicator, trustworthy, reliable, you study all the time and improve yourself? So know what your strengths are. And I would recommend for everyone to make a list with what you bring to the table and read it twice a day, once in the morning first thing and once last thing before bed. And every time before you have a sales call, read that list, because it's going to get you in the mindset of, yeah, I do deserve that. So when we're talking about taking risks, the hardest, most tough and common risk is usually taking a chance on ourselves. So like I said, we have to separate the fear and think about, what do I stand to win? Because if you trust the person that's going to help you get to the next level, if you can see that they already have helped others like yourself get that transformation, then the only missing piece is you. So you have to show up and do the work. So you have to trust that you're choosing the right mentor, the right program, the right school. And you also have to trust that it's going to work out for you. Why would it not? There is no reason. For those of you who believe in manifestation and the universe, the universe wants you to succeed all the time. There's no reason why it will want you to fail. There is no reason why you have to fail. So stop focusing on the failure and focus on what you have to gain, and then find a system that has worked for someone like you and follow it to a T.
It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you're aware of the concept of inspired action. Marie Forleo mentions it a lot, and I love it because for me, everything that happened in my life that like changed my life was literally that, me just like jumping and taking that inspired messy action. Because like, if you go through my socials, you won't see things that actually make sense. Because one day I'll be talking about my cat, another day I'm going to be talking about Fiverr, and then pitching to clients and mindset and fitness. Like, it doesn't really make sense. But it's just that messy inspired action that really, hit it for me and completely changed my life. I mean, coming from Argentina, it's hard. Like, people here, they make, if they're lucky, like $700 a month, and that's it. So, I'm not giving numbers because I'm still living in Argentina and I want to take care of myself. But having been in the 5-figure in Argentina, it's hard. It's really hard because you don't get it here. And for the people listening that are not in Argentina, who are listening from Europe, who are listening from the US, know that if you're scared of jumping, I mean, you guys, Dayana jumped, I jumped, and Dayana has been living in Costa Rica for some time as a digital nomad, and she's seen what it is like there. So if you are listening to this from a first world country, trust me, you have so many places where you can fall into if something goes wrong. So don't be scared to take that leap, because the only thing you're going to do if you don't do it is regret it. And I think that is one of the things that we humans regret the most. The things that we don't do, not what we do. We're never going to go and be like, oh, why did I talk to that client? Why did I pitch them? No, you're going to be like, why didn't I? Right? Before we close this, there's something that I really, really want to ask you. And because like we were talking about that before, coming from that scarcity mindset, what advice do you have for people who have that? Even though maybe they were not born in poverty, but they still have that scarcity mindset that is stopping them from maybe working with a coach or, taking that leap and pitching that client.
Oh man, so trust would be the biggest thing for you guys. And I'm working with someone who took the leap. She's an entrepreneur, digital nomad, has ADHD, struggles with clarity, all the things, check out. And she also is from the Balkans like me. So when it comes to scarcity, you have to understand first that scarcity presents in many different ways in your life. Scarcity means to have anxious attachment to money or to have avoidant attachment to money, which means, oh my God, I just earned $1,000.
But you're right.
Yeah. So
It's
it's
like a
like,
relationship.
Definitely. And relationship and money are very closely connected. So, for example, I just earned $1,000. I'm going to hold on to it, not do anything with it because I don't know when this is going to happen again, if it's going to happen again. That is anxious attachment. Or I just earned $1,000 and I spent it all on clothes because, I am not someone who has money. If this is a story you tell yourself, see what stories you're telling yourself. If you say to yourself things like, I am someone who, or I am someone who doesn't, then these are beliefs that you have. So, in order for you to deal with scarcity, you first have to pinpoint the scarcity belief. I'll give you two that I have to struggle with for many years that I have recovered from. One of my scarcity beliefs was there aren't enough clients for myself out there, there just aren't. And the other scarcity belief was someone like me is not meant to make a lot of money. So, what did I do? So, I put myself out there, I took action. And most recently, last week, I sold two of my offers and I ended up earning $10,000 in a little bit less than 24 hours. Right. These are my offers. That's not for anyone, it's for me. And I was like, oh, hello there, scarcity mindset. What were you saying now that there aren't enough clients for me and that someone like me is not supposed to make money? So where's that coming from? So it's on you to clean your slate because I understand, like we share this in common, that we may have grown up in families or in countries where it was always like, oh, there's not enough money, rich people are bad. You have to clean the slate. First, you have to notice what stories you tell yourself. Secondly, you have to give yourself proof that they are not true. And if you're thinking, well, Dee, I don't have proof personally because I've never made that kind of money, that's okay. I need you to go find an expander and then ask them, hey, how did this work for you? Or if they're really famous and you can't get to them, read their website, buy their biography book. Just follow that example and understand, embody that this is possible for you too.
I think it's very connected to the imposter syndrome too, right? Because I mean, and I think we all get it, even though if you make it and you're making, a lot of money. I know people who are making really like tons and tons of hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and they still struggle with that. And people, when they see that, maybe they don't notice, but maybe they see their favorite coach or someone at a stage. They still, they also struggle with that too, still, because that's part of evolving. Like if you're not, I mean, if you're completely secure of yourself, that means that you're playing too safe. I think that if you're expanding yourself, you should feel that. I think it's totally common, but you shouldn't allow it to take over and like stop you from actually, pursuing what you want to pursue.
Yeah. And to give an example of this, I have had many different coaches for myself over the years. And one time my business coach said, I need you to go and double your rates. And I said, holy shit, what do you mean double your rates? So she said, just that, charge twice as much as you charge now for what you're already doing. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so horrible. Like I'm going to show myself there and people are going to say, is she insane? Like, how can she do that? So I did it. Was it uncomfortable? Yes, it was uncomfortable. What did people say? So I'll tell you. The only thing people said to me was, good for you, Dee. My current clients came to me and they said, well, finally, Dayana, you've raised the rates to where they need to be. Jeez. So I never had any negative feedback. Nobody came to say to me, you're a fraud. Nobody said you're too expensive. What people saw was, wow, she's really going for it. That's what I want to do. So when you put yourself out there, think about all the people you're going to inspire. And also, the way that I think of myself is maybe some people would like me, maybe others would not like me. My job is to show up with an experimenter mindset and see what happens. I'm not here to be everyone's favorite person on the planet. I'm not here to piss people off intentionally either. I'm just here doing me with an experimental mindset.
And something that I love about you too is that, at least for me, is a relatability, because there's so much in common. But talking about that, and this is something that I really want to delve into before you leave, because there will be people listening to this from maybe the Balkans or any other country or Argentina or Spain, and they are bilingual and they want to start, or they already started, but I hear it across the board. Like, no, I cannot become a good copywriter if I don't speak English, or I cannot make a lot of money if I don't speak English. You and I were examples. I mean, you're a better example than I am, but to be honest, it's not a native tongue, and we made it happen. And you worked as a copywriter. Now you're working as a coach, but you also worked as a copywriter, writing copy for companies in America or Canada, Australia. So what would you tell them? Because that's a lie.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I have written copy for companies making anywhere from 1 to 18 million per year. Those companies, so all of my clients, every single one of my clients have been American, Canadian, one Australian. So what people get wrong is that native and mother tongue are two different things. Okay, so mother tongue is the language that you are born with. My mother tongue will forever be Bulgarian, such as your mother tongue might forever be Spanish. However, anybody can become native in whatever language they want. So to become native, you first have to you have to think in that language, and then you have to write in that language. And there are so many tools. So I mentor in my activated community. We have people from 16 different countries there. I have people who are based in, Asia, who are Bulgarian, who are Serbian, Greek, whatever. So I tell them there are so many tools at your disposal. If you're feeling insecure, go and run whatever pitch you're doing through Grammarly. Now, if you guys are using ChatGPT, there is a prompt that I use. So give ChatGPT the following prompt. Rewrite this copy as a native English speaker born in the United States, and then drop the text. And what you'll get is ChatGPT literally writing for you like an American person. So don't be so harsh on yourself. You do not have to have been born with that language. Remember, mother tongue versus native language. Remember, Grammarly, ChatGPT, Hemingway app, those are all tools that will help you sound exactly like it. When it comes to copywriting, one of my clients, Maggie, she's from Bulgaria. She is very good with psychology, and she understands the constructions of copy. So how to write a sales page, how to do all these things. Her grammar, she wants to improve. So I've told her, go and use these tools. And you know what? She's now getting clients from the US, paying her what salary in Bulgaria is quote unquote crazy, crazy good. So do not let that stop you.
Yeah, that's right. And also, like, that being your mother tongue doesn't mean that you write it well. I mean, there's so many people in America that maybe have even grammar issues or spelling issues. And not just that, because in the end, that's not a big deal in copywriting. And you and I know that. But knowing how to write copy, that is the craft that you need to learn. So, the language doesn't matter. And in fact, you have a bigger toolkit that you can use, because you can offer your services in more languages. So in that sense, you have a little bit of a superpower. So don't be scared to actually go and find those clients.
Exactly.
And before we go, I just want to ask you something, because I find this aspect of your life so interesting, and like that is something that I want to do more on my own, but I'm a little scared sometimes to do it for the wrong reasons. But you travel a lot. In my case, I travel a lot alone, so I'm like struggling with that, because like it gives me a little bit of anxiety, like, oh my god, what if something happens to me? But when you traveled on your own, not just with your boyfriend, what are the biggest takeaways that you get as a solo traveler or as a digital nomad? Because being a woman, it's hard. If you want to be a digital nomad, it can be scary, but I think that this is something that we all have in common, people who want to build their own businesses, at least in our age group, that we want to travel, and this is why we do it. So what advice will you give to people, and also what are the biggest lessons that you learned traveling around the world?
Ooh, number one is that once you start doing it, it is so much easier. So before I was supposed to leave for the Dominican Republic alone, and I was going to the jungle, you guys. I wasn't going to any like big city. I was going to Samana Peninsula, which is well up in the jungle. I was like, oh my God, I'm a woman. I don't know self-defense. I've got this huge backpack. What's gonna happen? So yeah, I relate to your anxiety. Like I must have lied in bed that night before the trip, and I like probably didn't even sleep. So when you start doing it, when you show up to the airport, it feels fine. You show up to the airplane, you sit down, it feels fine. You land there, It feels fine. It's literally people. I remember I arrived, it was night. I had to get from the airport to another city. The only way was bus. I got on the bus and it was full of, different people. And yeah, I was the only non-Dominican person and nobody said anything. People were like, "Oh yeah, are you okay? Where are you going? Cool, great." Obviously, like I speak Spanish, so I was able to talk to them. But I've also been in a situation in Morocco. I was going from a city called Taroudan to Marrakesh. It was midnight. I was the only woman on a bus full of men. I was wearing a baseball hat because I have really blonde hair and I didn't want to like stick out. But I didn't feel unsafe. Like at some point there was a fight that broke out between the dudes. It was weird. At some point they stopped for food and they were there for like an hour having like steaks and beer, whatever. So that was a long journey, as you can imagine. But when you start going on your journey, you realize that people are just people everywhere. Nobody wakes up that day and is like, "I'm gonna go rob me a foreigner today. Oh, let's pick a single woman. That's great." People usually don't do that. Okay, in some cases, that might be a real danger. For those cases, I would say just take basic precautions, such as don't stick out too much. So when I travel, I usually, if I'm alone, I would wear something like black leggings or jeans. Like I probably have my hair like under a hat or something. And I just wear like plain clothes. I don't wear anything that sticks out. I don't wear red lipstick. Usually I do when I'm at home. But, just take basic precautions. If you're wearing headphones, maybe wear only one of them instead of both at the same time. Be aware of your surroundings if you're in a new city. And also, one thing that it has helped me throughout my travels solo is that when it gets dark, I do one of two things. I am either heading home because I'm having a quiet night, or I'm in a group of friends. But I usually don't wander around after 10 p.m. because, not to sound like your grandma, but that's when bad things happen. So I would always say keep an eye out. If you're a woman and you go to a bar and you get a mixed drink, basic things like if you go to the bathroom, leave it with a friend or cover it with something. Like if you feel unwell or kind of weird, if you sense with your intuition that something's wrong, remove yourself, get a taxi, ask for help, ask another woman for help. There are basic things that you can do to make sure that you're okay on the road, but don't let that stop you from traveling.
Yeah, I love it. And now, before we close, I need to ask you this. So, I think that entrepreneurship and solo traveling are one of the biggest self-discovery tools for personal growth a person can use. So, I don't know, in your case, what are your biggest takeaways from both those experiences? Because you've lived both of them.
It's funny because the word solo is kind of present in both. So, solopreneur, solo traveler. I've learned personally that, like I said, it gets less scary once you start doing it, that we're all capable of a lot more than we realize. And funny enough, that's what a coach does. In Coach Academy, I was literally taught that my job was to see my client 10 steps ahead of where they are now so I could help them get there. So we already can do a lot more than we realize. We don't have to do it alone. So even if you're a solo traveler, there's no reason why you would not meet up with a fellow traveler. There's so many groups. When I was traveling solo, I used to be a member of a Facebook group called Girls Love Travel, where there's hundreds of thousands of women. And I would say, "Hey, I'm going to, I don't know, Miami. Is there anyone in town?" So even in business, there's no reason why you have to struggle and do everything yourself. If you are a copywriter and you're looking to charge more money, why not pair up with a designer? So together you offer a comprehensive package.
Yeah.
If you have trouble nailing your sales calls, why not hire a mentor for an hour and be like, "Hey, can you teach me how you close sales so I can do it better?" If you're looking for clients, activate your network. Tell everybody, "I'm looking for clients," talk to your past clients. So you don't have to do it alone. You're capable of more than you think, and it gets easier once you start.
I love it. And Dayana, before we close up, is there any question I didn't ask you and I should have, or anything you want to close the conversation with?
Oh, you've been so wonderful. Honestly, this has been one of the best conversations I've had, honest. And I think what I want to close with is that even if it feels like you don't know what to do next, even if it feels like the odds are stacked against you, Even if you feel like you're a little crazy because you have a really big goal and you don't know how you're going to get there, I'm telling you that it's possible. Use the two of us here as your expanders. And if anyone ever wants to hear more of my story, has any questions, always feel free. I do not bite. Come drop me a message. You can find me on Instagram at Dayana, Dayana _ Aleksandrova _ This is also my website, DayanaAleksandrova.com. Come ask me anything, and yeah, believe in yourself some more.
Go follow her. I'm going to leave all your links below. And again, thank you for coming, and thank you for everyone listening. If you have any questions, you know where to find her. You're going to find everything in the notes. So again, thank you, Dayana, for coming. I really enjoyed this conversation.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a like. It helps more than you think. Thank you for being there. See you soon.